Pippi Longstocking said, "I really, really, really want to be brave, but not now when I'm so scared." And I think that's a little bit how I'm feeling just now. This is me most of the time. For the last 45 years, I have been a concrete worker and been allowed to play with concrete and make huge public commissions, sculptures in many places around the world. And the first time I really felt like Pippi in my work was when when I was going to work on this commission that I won, that I didn't think I would win because it was so over the top. And then I was lucky to find a concrete engineer who said to me, "Don't worry, the only thing you really need to know is to find out what you are not good at, what you can't do yourself. And then look at that as a resource. Go and find someone who would help making what you can't do yourself, but also who would love to do it. Then you can do anything." This is a biological cleansing plant in Norway with figureheads that I've built up around as a life cycle. I've been working on different symbols. For a long time, I've been working on the symbol of these strange hybrid beings, of a mixture of birds and human beings that were created maybe by some artists, but thousands of years ago, and it's become an archetype being used by all cultures all over the world. And in the art world, recently, or for the last few years, it's been a bit of a taboo, more than anything else. And I think it's really exciting to work on those irrational elements that, we don't know, maybe there's an angel flying around here. We don't know, why are they in people's minds all over? And I have been working with young people in workshops, many places, and I think I really feel the need for something that can be giving courage and hope, because so many of these young people actually say, when I ask, "What is your hope for the future?" And they say, "I would like to die young." Many of them say that. And I say, "But why?" And they say, "The greed, the climate problems, the wars, how are we going to manage? And how can we actually try to find a way of feeding these young people with courage, with something that really give them power to participate in reshaping the future and gaining hope?" Here, now you can see why all these angels have the embracing position. I was sitting in my studio in Denmark, looking at this rubbish bin, and I suddenly saw a seated figure. On the other one, you can see how I've been welding up a pregnant angel. It's very exciting because I think recently, somehow the need for these protecting irrational elements have also reached the art world. Artists at all times, have been witnesses of the time they live in. And sometimes we need to provoke, sometimes we need maybe to give hope. And here I was invited by Kunsthaus Dresden to bring in my flock of rolling angels into the 75th anniversary for peace and the commemoration for the bombing of Dresden. They were invited into this demonstration with lots of Nazis, of anti-fascists, and of police in heavy protection gears. It was very exciting, actually, to hear the young people who pushed these angels around in those demonstrations where they expected really heavy confrontations. Instead, they met people's curiosity. And I was asked up on the trunk of the lorry to shout an answer to their questions. Why are there angels amongst us? Then here you can see the angel with a hole. They're all humble beings trying to be identifying all sorts of states and feelings. And here it's in front of the cathedral in Dresden, and it says here, "Blessed are the peacemakers." And on the other picture, I don't know if it's the angel protecting the police or the police protecting the angel. As I started with, I have been very much concerned with the figurehead, the galleon figure, as a symbol also of protection. As long as the humankind have been moving on water, it's been, it has had the need for this irrational element of protection around unknown dangers. Like, the Vikings with lions or dragons, or maybe, as most people know, these voluptuous women that have been breaking the waves. And one night I dreamt that my figures, where my sculptures were sailing. And my husband, I told the dream, my husband, who's also a sculptor, said, "Don't you know it's possible to make boats in ferrocement process?" And I read about it and saw that it's very close to my beloved concrete process. So I decided to try to pursue the possibility of creating, like in the beginning, the life cycle that, that first picture was from 1996, but here I decided to make the human body into a boat. And then, of course, I remember my wonderful mentor, the concrete engineer, and I was able to find really great people who loved to go into the process with me. And here you can see the ship engineer drawing, and we are measuring and talking about the next step. That is in my studio, where we are building from scratch these concrete ships with all the welding. This process took several years and a lot of negotiating, finding funding, pursuing the quest of being able to really fulfill that dream of crossing the waterways, crossing borders. We had casting parties with lots of people, pushing and pulling the concrete from both sides. And you can see after that, I will be modeling all the details by myself in the studio. And this is the team for the last one. We were 150 people meeting. This is before and after the hull, like a festival really over 4 days. And then pushing the pregnant one out of my studio, launching it with a big crane, and then the celebration at Aarhus, European Capital of Culture in 2017. They were the people to coordinate the whole journey of these lifeboats sailing to 60 harbors all over Denmark. This is from a children's game. My ship is loaded with something beginning with, and here beginning with L. My ship is loaded with longing. She's the young one, and she contains a treasure chest inside, collecting texts of hope and dreams and longing. The treasure chest will never be opened. It will mix with other people's dreams and longings. My ship is loaded with life, the pregnant one, with young people drawing symbolic self-portraits inside of the belly. And my ship is loaded with memories, the old one who is carrying 19 figureheads. That's actually symbolic portraits of real women who have in common that they have all lived in other countries than their own. They are all past 70 years of age and represent 27 different nations. And they have actually all agreed on being in the same boat, even though they have been on different sides of the same wars. They have survived more than 8 different wars, but they decided to be in the same boat to give hope to the coming generations. And one of them is my mother, who has... I've been living in India and Iran as a child, and she sang the children's song for us as children of maybe we are different on the outside, but inside we're all the same. And that's very much part of why I've been creating this project. She's a painter, and I think she's a very courageous woman. Her mother died when she was born, so being a mother and a grandmother has been a very big task for her, in addition to being a painter. But she's given me this feeling of how important a life cycle is, how much we have in common. You know, everyone has been inside of a woman. We share so much more in the process of being human beings than what differs us. So, you know, why did I risk everything? House and I just had to do this. And I have often been asked how I could spend 8 years in the process. And I have asked myself, why did I do this? But then I think I got a very beautiful answer when I was on the maiden journey with sailing through the fjords in Denmark and landing in this little island where we were greeted with wine and nice food and conversations by the local people. And a couple of boat builders, fishermen, had been reading about my process and asked me technical questions until one of them suddenly looked at me without filter, and he said, you know, when this has been possible, that you have been sailing to us in these sculptures, I think that maybe you will then have, when you leave from here, maybe you've left something in our heads that will make us think that maybe something we did not think would be possible might become possible. And he had a little break and he said, and that is healthy. I really did feel that was, in a way, the answer for why I had to do this. You know, to try to find a way of giving each other courage, to believe that we can much more than we actually very often think that we can. And then doing it together, finding people who can help us build and go together. And then maybe we can get some of that strength that Pippi has when she is not scared. Thank you.